with Satisfactory having been around a couple years and clocking several thousand hours for myself, I went onto Reddit to see what some of the people thought about the game, and to my surprise, there were a couple of people that were starting the game and quitting early because it starts getting complicated. And I definitely feel that. When I started, I wish I had some tips and advice to get me through the already complicated game. So what better excuse than that than to make a video for beginners focused on the early game tips that I wish I had. And by early game, I mean really from tiers 0 through to 3 until you unlock coal, because this is some of the foundations that you'll set to make the game easier for yourself in those later tiers. Without any further ado, let's get into the tips I wish I knew as an absolute beginner in early game Satisfactory. Starting with tip number 1, gather everything. Every leaf, every wood you find in your new world when you first start, gather it all, and I'll talk about why in a little bit. To make this process faster, hold down E, or hold E, press tab, let go of E and let go of tab to gather everything automatically. You can press E again to stop this process. So why is that? Because leaves, wood, can be converted into what's called biomass. Biomass is the most efficient thing that we have at the start of the game until we unlock solid biofuel, and this should be our focus until we get coal power. See, we want to avoid using leaves and wood as our fuel source and instead collect as much as we can and convert it into biomass, which is far more efficient. See, leaves burn at 15 megajoules per unit, with wood burning at a more respectable 100 megajoules per unit, biomass at 180, and solid biofuel at 450. This means that biomass burners also only burn what is needed. So we would run out of leaves pretty quickly, and we want to get at least biomass set up. This means you should build more burners than you need, thus making the fuel last a little longer. Consider building some constructors to automate the leaves to wood to biomass and biomass to biofuel in that process. Tip number 3, checking the contents of storage containers quickly. You can press F to dismantle a storage container, but actually just see the inside contents of that respective container. Tip number 4, upgrading your existing belts. If you have lower Mark 1, Mark 2 belts and you want to upgrade them, you can simply select the belt you want to upgrade to, hover over the existing belts and upgrade the segment or the entire belt. Tip number 5, the filter dismantle. If you find yourself dismantling things that you need and don't need at the same time, simply press G hovering over what you want to dismantle. This will bring a filter up on your screen and only let you delete the item that you're hovered over, protecting everything else. Tip number 6, another keybind. The copy paste, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. Instead of manually setting the outputs for your constructors or assemblers or any other device, you can simply copy paste it from one to the other, save you a little bit of time. This works from machines all the way to your labels and signs. Tip number 7, use the taskbar. You can assign anything from your build menu to your taskbar, from keys 1 through to 0. Don't worry if you run out of space, hold down Alt and scroll up or scroll down to get a new taskbar, and you can still assign a bunch of items to that. Tip number 8, not so big in a tip, but dimensional storage. This negates the use of having to come back to your base to store things, especially if you're exploring. A dimensional storage kind of replaces your central storage system, essentially allowing you to upload anything you want to a device that's somewhere in the void. You can access this later at any time and pull anything out of that dimensional depot, or even upload anything to that dimensional depot from anywhere in the map, as long as you have one somewhere. And along with that, tip number 9, explore as much as you can. Find the crash sites and find these hard drives. There'll be valuable materials there, pick them up, don't use them, keep them for further progression later down the line. Open these drop pods, grab the hard drive, and make sure to take a MAM with you wherever you go. This ensures that you're able to decrypt the hard drive and find alternate recipes. I'll throw some of the best ones that I've found on the screen now. These will help you essentially save a whole bunch of time in the future because they require less resources and produce more output at the end of the day, and this is exactly what we're looking for. Tip number 10, understand how Headlift works for your pipes. All you need to know really is that water extractors by default have a 10-meter headlift. That is, they can only push water up a maximum of a 10-meter vertical height before it won't progress to the other side. As you can see on the screen, the red is a 10-meter pipe U-bend and the orange is a 15-meter U-bend. A 15-meter U-bend here and will require a Mark 1 pump or a Mark 2 pump to ensure that there's sufficient head lift to get the liquid from one side to the other. Make sure you understand how this works though, because if you don't, you'll find that things like your coal factories or future biofuel factories will actually end up clocking down and stop working because it's not getting the right amount of liquid fuel. This brings us to tip number 11, unlock foundations fast. They're one of the first things that you can get in tier 1 and I highly recommend it. Now, some of the variants that you can unlock in foundations are many, but the most common being 1x1, 2x2 and 4x4. Now, you'll need to understand these for tip number 12, and that's the foundations and world grid. See, foundations have a midpoint on them that's snapped to the world grid to allow for perfect building that isn't out of shape, which will eventually allow you to build into other factories completely straight without any curves. It'll also allow you to zoop horizontally or vertically. Tip number 13, the basic splitter. Now, splitters are super easy to understand. They split your inputs in either 2 or 3 ways, and they split them by half in either of those ways. So if I pass in 60 items into a splitter, it'll split it either 30 by 30 in 2 directions or 20 by 20 by 20 in 3. Now, they're pretty easy to understand, and they are also essential if you want to build manifolds or load balancers. You can check a video of that over here. If you have too many items, you can use tip 14, the resource sink. You can send those excess materials only if you're not using them to a resource sink. The rarer the item that you pass in, the more points you get. The lesser it is, the less points. But you can exchange those for fix-it coupons, which you can then go to the awesome shop to exchange for a bunch of items, either resources, architectural components, or even some colors that you can use. Tip number 15, the indicator light. No, these green lights on your machines aren't just there for aesthetics, they actually show you something. See, there's 4 different variants of these lights. There's blue, meaning overclocked, green meaning it's optimally functioning, yellow meaning it's missing resources, and red meaning it's not plugged in. So it's super important to pay attention to these lights, especially when you scale your factory, to make sure everything's functioning as optimally as it can. In our example, we have this assembler that's needing 60 screws per minute and 30 plates. But as you can see, our machines are going yellow because we're only producing 20 plates and 40 screws, a deficit of roughly 10 and 20 respectively. So how do you overcome this? Well, the easiest is to overclock it, but because it's beginner news and you likely won't have power slugs, you can simply just add a couple more machines to allow for that excess load and filter out the rest using splitters. This is the easiest way to go about making it efficient. But as soon as you unlock power slugs, make sure to overclock your machines to those correct unit numbers. And just like that, we've come to the end of another video. Now, if you did enjoy it, I'd appreciate if you subscribed and threw a like, and if there's things that you want to add to help some newer players, please feel free to throw them in the comments. Now, like I said, this is built more towards a novice player with information that I wish that I knew when I first started the game. It's not massive information, but it's definitely enough to help you get over the hump of feeling stuck. Now, I know that this game can be a little too much sometimes, but the first thing you need to understand is Satisfactory, unfortunately, does not respect your time. As much time as you'd put into it, there will be moments where you want to pull your hair out. And at that point, I'd say step back for a second, chill, and then come back later. But the most important tip I can give you is play the way that you want. If you don't want to use things like manifolds or load balancers or dimensional depots, don't. You don't have to. That's the beauty of this game. Play however you want and whatever brings you satisfaction, and that's the way you'll have fun. But remember, the idea of this series is just to help you get out of the earlier tiers as soon as possible, and that should be your goal because lower tiers kinda suck, especially due to the lack of power, and power is essential in Satisfactory, as you'll find, I'm sure, if you stick around. But as I said at the start of the video, I do intend to make a couple of more advanced tutorials on things like the fluid dynamics and how the pumps and pipelines in this game work. Now, if there's anything that you want to see, please let me know down below. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one.